Ever since its inception during the scientific revolution that began with Copernicus in 1543, modern science has sought to replace religion's dogmatic views of the universe and how it works with explanations based on reason and observable evidence. But now, in 2023, has science become the very dragon it has fought for centuries to slay? Is science the religion of the 21st century? This is a complex question with a lot of layers to peel back, and a full exploration of it would require a presentation far beyond the attention spans of all but the most dedicated academic researchers. There's no doubt I could fill a whole book with evidence supporting this thesis, or make a multi-volume documentary about it. I can't promise this video won't be on the wrong side, but since we live in the age of TikTok, where people are watching short videos on their small phone screens, I'll do my best to outline the issue as briefly as I can and let you judge the merits of my arguments for yourselves. First, let's define what a religion is and list some characteristics so we have something to check modern science against. It's important to note that there are many types of religions and not all of them check every possible box. So a general definition with a few characteristics should do for this comparative analysis. If for simplicity's sake, we'll go with the second definition in dictionary.com's entry for the word religion. It is a specific fundamental set of beliefs and practices generally agreed upon by a number of persons or sects. That's a pretty broad definition, so what are some of the defining characteristics that set religions apart from, say, an economic or a political system? With so many kinds of religions spread over such a broad spectrum of cultures on the planet, that's a big question. But let's narrow it down to the most common shared by most religions. 1. A core mythology. That is to say, a story of how the universe began and will end. This story may or may not involve one or more gods or spirits. It gives details about the structure and function of the universe and man's place within it, and is usually either recorded in the form of sacred texts or taught down through the generations by oral traditions. 2. A moral code. Most religions have a philosophy of right and wrong, of good versus evil. 3. Dogmas. That is to say, beliefs and or laws that are considered absolute truths and must be believed and adhered to without question. 4. Sacred rites. Most religions also have a set of sacred rites and practices for both individual members and the group as a whole. These rites may or may not be led by or guided by a central authority figure who also serves as the interpreter and teacher of all the other aspects of the religion. 5. Sacred objects, symbols, and or languages. Most religions will often have relics and symbols, and sometimes even a language that is held sacred by and have meaning only to the followers of the religion. 6. Conformity. All believers in the religion are expected to abide by and live their lives according to all aspects of the religion. This creates a sense of community in the society and may influence other aspects of it, like governmental and economic systems. Those people who do not conform may be treated as outcasts or worse. And 7. Followers. This is the most important aspect of any religion. Without followers who believe and live by the first 6 things in this list, a religion will either fade away into history or else be relegated to the realms of cults or personal spirituality, and in any case will cease to exist as a religion. The most devout of these followers will often be afflicted as a result of the interplay between themselves and all the other aspects of religion with the psychological condition cognitive dissonance, which will not allow them to believe anything that contradicts their beliefs, even in the face of overwhelming evidence. Anybody who hasn't been living under a rock for his or her entire life can think of religions that tick every single one of these boxes. We've all experienced them, whether we're followers of those religions or not. Look at Christianity, for example. It has a core mythology and a moral code, both encoded in a sacred text, which in turn is held to be the absolute truth. So ticks the dogma box. It has sacred rites including, but not limited to, baptism, communion, prayer, and going to church on Sunday. These rites are led by a priest or minister, depending on the particular sect. And as for items 5 and 6 in the list, well, Catholic Church, anyone? This is the oldest unified form of Christianity. It's chock full of sacred relics and symbols, and even today its services are often conducted in Latin. And I challenge you to look up the Spanish Inquisition and the Knights Templar if you doubt their views on conformity. And then, of course, there are the followers. Christianity is one of the 3 biggest religions in the Western world. And if you want to know what cognitive dissonance is, just try discussing evolution with one of them. The most devout of them cannot accept it, no matter how much evidence you show them, and will perform feats of mental gymnastics that put Mary Lou Retton to shame to justify their beliefs. But what about modern science? Would it surprise you to learn that it, too, checks all 7 of these boxes? Let's take a look. Although I've noticed some odd coincidental similarities between both scientific theories and the attitudes, behaviors, and practices of scientists with those of religions and their believers, I would not have made this claim 20 years ago. Science has, after all, always concerned itself with the here and now, with little regard for anything else. But coincidences add up, circumstances change, and as of 2023, science seems to have evolved to the point that it now meets all 7 of the criteria discussed in the last segment, and thus, an argument can be made that it has become a religion in everything but name. Let's run through the list, shall we? 1. A core mythology. Yes, modern science has a core mythology, telling the story of the universe from beginning to eventual end and mankind's place within it. And it's even found room for its own versions of a creator, a spirit world, and magic, thanks to things like dark matter, quantum entanglement, and the quantum mind and simulation hypotheses. As I discussed in the Reddit post I'll link to in the video description, each new discovery makes the universe sound more and more in line with ancient religious beliefs. Moreover, that mythology is even found in science's own version of sacred texts, written by authors with names like Darwin, Einstein, Feynman, Hawking, and Hubble. 2. A moral code. While science has always had an ethical code, governing things like what kinds of experiments it's acceptable to perform, it wasn't always the case that it had a moral code. That changed in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic, when the scientific community laid out their guidelines for how people should live their lives, and the people they were talking to began to see those who complained about those guidelines or refused to abide by them as quote-unquote evil or amoral. 3. Dogmas. Just like a religion, science has its own set of facts that are taken as absolute and indisputable. The universe is almost 14 billion years old. No 2 people have the same fingerprints. Fossils and DNA prove evolution is real. Nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. Experimental results are worthless without repeatability. These are just a few such scientific dogmas off the top of my head. Okay, sacred rites. Yep, science has those too. They have names like getting your degree, experimentation, publication, and academic conferences, just to name a few. Sacred objects, symbols, and or languages. Yes, Virginia, science does have all 3. It has relics like the International Prototype Kilogram, Sir Isaac Newton's journals, and even Albert Einstein's preserved brain. It has symbols like the caduceus and, again thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, the face mask. And they even have a sacred language. It isn't Greek or Latin, but the language of numbers. Mathematics. Conformity. What's the art of testing hypotheses to see if something is true, and if so, why it is true? Science has, like any religion, become a creature of conformity. Any new idea proposed and any experiment performed must conform to the standards set by the first 5 items in this list. else the idea isn't taken seriously and the researcher risks serious consequences. Not the same kind of consequences as heretics faced at the hands of the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, mind you. They're not going to kill or torture you. Science does it with things like peer review, censure, and blacklisting. And to the scientists, that's just as bad as the way the medieval church handled its affairs, because it means the death of his or her career. Additionally, it should be noted that the COVID-19 pandemic has spread disconformity to society at large as well. The pandemic has led many people to want to research the topic themselves, and if their ideas based on what they've read or watched don't conform, they get mocked and ostracized. And followers. Once again, we come to the most important aspect of any religion. And thanks to the pandemic, science has followers in droves. Said followers treat the authors of science's sacred texts like they're gods or prophets, and the words of people like Anthony Fauci and Neil deGrasse Tyson like Catholics do those of the Pope. On top of it all, they and the people they follow have the same cognitive dissonance towards paranormal topics that their fundamentalist counterparts have against scientific topics. Paradoxical, since their own theories allow for such things, but that's a topic for another video. The point is that it exists. If you want to see it in science's leaders, just listen to Dr. Tyson's mental gymnastics trying to deny the authenticity of the declassified UAP videos, and just discuss masks and COVID-19 vaccination with its followers if you want to see it there. There you have it. So far in this video, I've listed 7 characteristics common to most religions and shown how modern science meets every single one of those criteria. As I've asserted several times through the course of this video, it's largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic bringing science more squarely under the public scrutiny that this transition from an academic institution to a religion was made possible. And it's through that same event that perhaps the most ironic piece of evidence emerged that showed that the transition was not only made possible, but has in fact completed. Science came about with the intention to replace faith-based beliefs or religions with facts-based and tangible evidence. Yet, in the 3 years since the pandemic hit, the scientific community seems content to ask the general public to take it on faith that their conclusions about COVID or any other scientific topic are true and accurate. This might not be the case if the scientific community were more transparent about their research methodology and findings, instead of worrying about trade secrets, patents, and profit margins, and we're willing to put out that information in formats easy for the average person to understand and follow along with. But so far, getting access to that kind of information is like trying to gain unrestricted access to the Vatican Library. In fact, the latter is probably easier. So, basically, as to the question of whether science has become the religion of the 21st century, I'll leave it to you to weigh the merits of my arguments for yourself. For me personally, though, well, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, chances are it's not a gorilla, no matter how much it may want you to believe otherwise. Okay guys, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please let me know by clicking on that like button. And if you'd like to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss when a new video comes out. Until next time, peace.